provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Making headlines at first at 9. Long last, Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira reveals the fuel pricing formula. Raw involvement. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi issues a statement saying President Sirisena rejected the media reports. Fast track. Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe voices the need to accelerate investments for the West Terminal at the Colombo port.
West Terminal, if they are willing to make the investment, we can fast track them.
Illegal firearms. Police arrest the SLFP organiser of Marmanella with 3 unlicensed firearms. Missing journalist. US asks Turkey for a recording on Jamal Khashoggi's killing. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaika. Now in your top story this evening, the much sought after and politically debated fuel pricing formula introduced by the Ministry of Finance last May was revealed to media today for the first time by Subject Minister Mangala Samaravira.
MRP සමානයි V1 එකතු කිරීම V2 එකතු කිරීම V3 එකතු කිරීම V4.
Citing continuous losses incurred by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, the Ministry of Finance introduced a fuel pricing formula according to which fuel prices are revised on the 10th of each month. Since the government made the introduction, fuel prices have been revised on 5 occasions to date. Despite calls from various quarters to reveal the fuel pricing formula, the government did not comply until today. According to the formula created by a technical committee, the maximum retail price of auto fuels constitutes the total of landed cost, processing cost, administrative cost and taxation. The landed cost includes Singapore Platts price per barrel, weighted average premium per barrel, loss due to the evaporation and exchange rates applied. The processing cost is inclusive of local port charges, transport cost, dealers' margin including losses due to evaporation to dealers and stockholding cost. The administrative expenses including personnel cost, depreciation and other cost elements, if any, are included in the administrative cost. Finally, taxation is inclusive of customs import duty, excise duty, ports and airports development levy and nation building tax. The Ministry of Finance also notes that according to the above pricing formula, Singapore Platts per barrel and exchange rate are 2 uncontrollable variables and other components are either controllable variables or fixed components.
The tax in Sri Lanka is lower comparative to the region. You too can calculate the fuel price on the 10th and let us know. I request you to do this as a hobby. There was a recent trend in decreasing fuel prices. But we can't be so sure because it all depends on what the head of America does. Therefore, let's hope for a continued decrease in fuel prices so we can pass that on at least next month. Although this says V1, it includes a lot of factors to be considered. Doing this monthly is no easy task.
Do you keep the tax as a percentage constant or do you change it on a monthly basis?
It all depends on the final price, right? So if there are big volatilities, we have to take out a certain portion of the tax. If the fluctuations are huge, we may time to time adjust by a duty waiver.
What's the percentage on the petrol now, like 19% for diesel?
Yes.
Yeah, on petrol, India is 43% of the MRP taxes. Pakistan is 38%. Sri Lanka is 34%. Singapore is 11%. And the United Kingdom is 61%.
We didn't revise the price of diesel last month because that's adjusted by the tax.
It's a sensitive government to the needs of our people.
Has the pressure on the rupee eased after the measures were taken?
I think so, and then in the last few days it has been fairly stable.
I think once it appreciated and there was a depreciation, but the depreciation that we witnessed somewhere in September 25th, 26th, high volatility is not appearing now.
In the meantime, experts expressed their views on the fuel pricing formula.
Despite the decline in crude oil prices from its historic highs seen in 2014, which saw even oil go up to $140 a barrel, the main driving factor for this cost increase has been the rupee depreciation. The rupee has depreciated about 30% since 2014, and that is translated into the cost of the oil barrel. Now, apart from those costs, you find also other ancillary costs, namely transport costs, the dealer margin and stock holding costs, which is about 40% of the total cost of production. As we've seen in the past, the burden of the cost rise has been now passed on to the consumer, whereas in 2014 the government absorbed the cost and shielded the consumer from any price volatility. Sri Lanka also missed out on two golden opportunities when crude oil prices declined to about $37 a barrel. The simple reason was that they didn't adopt a prudent risk management policy to capture the low prices when the markets corrected. They could have entered into longer term contracts, or they could have entered into a strategic hedge which could have resulted in safeguarding the consumer from this price volatility.
There is one item missing in the pricing formula. I don't know why it is missing. Probably the CPC, instead of CIF for FOB, I think they use the oil import terms DES. That is very cheap. It is surprising what it means, that depreciation. So that new depreciation term comes the first time into the fuel formula, the capital depreciation of capital items, then it's going to be a huge amount. And if it is a depreciation of, I don't know, the oil cannot depreciate, oil prices or whatever oil, it always appreciates. Stock holding cost is separately there, so there can't be any other depreciation in respect of oil. So depreciation is a questionable item. Other thing is the evaporation amount is not specifically mentioned what type of evaporation is there. And port and levy, whether the dolphin pier charges still charge or not. So there are some the questionable items. So the actual pricing formula cannot be analyzed.
Now, moving on to one of the biggest stories to break within the last 48 hours, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's office moved to issue a statement late last evening after President Maithripala Sirisena contacted the Indian Premier by telephone to give clarity to the allegations levelled against India's Research and Analysis Wing, also known as RAW. Media reports published yesterday alleged that the Sri Lankan president accused RAW during the cabinet meeting on Tuesday of plotting his assassination. The statement released by PM Modi's office says President Sirisena categorically rejected media reports about him alluding to the involvement of India in any manner whatsoever in an alleged plot to assassinate him and a former defence secretary. The Indian Premier's statement, however, comes as a revelation, as the statement issued by President Sirisena's media division made no mention of the two leaders touching on the media reports in question during their telephone conversation.
Speculation started swirling overhead Indo-Sri Lanka relations after a media report published by daily Indian newspaper The Hindu alleged that President Maithripala Sirisena accused India's Research and Analysis Wing, also known as RAW, for plotting his assassination. Although several government entities, including the Secretary to the Cabinet, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the President's Media Division rejected the claims made by the newspaper as false. The journalist who wrote the article was present at the cabinet media briefing yesterday, where she said the four cabinet ministers confirmed that the president alluded a plot by India's RAW to assassinate him during the cabinet meeting.
Yeah, may I respond saying some of your cabinet colleagues told me on record across party lines that this was set, and I take objection to you raising a point about the credibility of
No,
the
this
report.
is the media statement issued by the cabinet secretary.
Okay.
What had taken place yesterday.
No, then
Press
does it
conference.
mean that your cabinet colleagues have not spoken the truth? Have
There
they?
may be not colleagues. There may be one colleague with some ulterior motive.
No, I spoke to 4 people, Minister.
In the meantime, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a statement on his website in reference to a telephone call made by President Sirisena. It says, quote, "The President of Sri Lanka stated that he categorically rejected the reports in sections of media about him alluding to the involvement of India in any manner whatsoever in an alleged plot to assassinate the President and a former Defence Secretary of Sri Lanka," unquote. This statement, however, comes in a backdrop where the statement issued by President Sirisena's media division did not make any mention of the two leaders' discussion in the report published in newspaper The Hindu. The Indian PM statement goes on to say that the mischievous and male FID reports were utterly baseless and false and seemed intended to create misunderstanding between the two leaders as well as damage the cordial relations between the two friendly neighbours. According to the statement issued by the Indian Premier's office, he appreciated the prompt steps taken by the President and his government to firmly refute the malicious reports by publicly clarifying the matters. The statement ends with, quote, he also reiterated India's emphasis on neighbourhood first policy and the priority the government of India and he personally attached to developing even stronger all-round cooperation between the two countries, unquote. In the meantime, several politicians expressed their views on the relations made by Indian newspaper The Hindu and the reactions it attracted.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had sought an appointment to talk about this issue. That's why Prime Minister Modi wanted a telephone conversation with the President yesterday in a hurry. What are they trying to do? They're trying to isolate President Sirisena from any kind of ties with India. We can say that what happened yesterday was more like a second assassination attempt of President Sirisena, but to destroy his reputation. The alleged assassination attempt of President Maithripala Sirisena and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa can't be considered lightly. He should have arrested DIG Nalaka De Silva first and then conducted investigations. According to information we have so far, he will most probably be arrested. You will have more news in the coming days. It came out even before it went to The Hindu. We got to know about it within 2-3 hours following the cabinet meeting. There's nothing called secrets in the cabinet now. There are those who leak information to outsiders in any cabinet.
I don't know what their agenda was, but what happened was there was a situation that they put in place which put into question the excellent bilateral relations that exist between India and Sri Lanka. So because of the President moving in immediately and clarifying the situation and stating categorically that no such thing eventuated in cabinet, I think we were able to avoid a crisis.
Now, with both India and Sri Lanka having to deny respective allegations levelled against them, with RAW at the centre of it, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has set off on his scheduled official visit to India this afternoon. The Premier's office said that the Sri Lankan PM is set to hold discussions with his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi in New Delhi during his 3-day official visit. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe is also expected to meet Indian Ministers of Home Affairs as well as External Affairs. Now moving on to other stories, Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe voiced the government's intention to fast-track proceedings regarding the West Terminal at the Colombo port if India and Japan are willing to make investments. The minister made these remarks at a media briefing held in Colombo today.
West Terminal, if they are willing to make the investment, we can fast-track that. We would like to consider India and Japan, who were the main two parties who displayed an interest, India especially. Let's see. I mean, these are things that have to be discussed.
What is China's stance on the West Terminal? Are they ready to sponsor projects in Sri Lanka?
Well, China is ever ready to sponsor projects, but that doesn't mean that we have to facilitate them always. It all depends on their investment.
Now, President Maithripala Sirisena has instructed director boards of the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, the People's Bank and the Bank of Ceylon to resign. His decision was conveyed to the subject ministers last night. It is noteworthy that these institutions are under the purview of two ministers who represent the United National Party in the unity government. The People's Bank and Bank of Ceylon are under the purview of Minister of Public Enterprise Lakshman Kirella, while the Board of Investments is under the purview of Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama. The head of state had pointed to administrative issues within these institutions and highlighted the importance of restructuring them. Meanwhile, several representatives of the UNP held discussions with the President at the Presidential Secretariat today regarding these developments. Former DIG Nalaka De Silva was questioned by the CID for almost 9 hours today and was also asked to appear before the CID tomorrow for further interrogations. Former DIG Nalak De Silva, who was in charge of the TID, was informed to appear before the Criminal Investigation Department last Tuesday as part of the probe into the alleged assassination plot on the President and the former Defence Secretary. He was unable to comply due to a personal matter, and he, however, appeared before the CID this morning. Former Minister Johnston Fernando, who was acquitted by the Kurunegala High Court, insists that he will resort to legal action against the FCID for the unjust imprisonment. He made these remarks addressing a media briefing which was headed by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa in Colombo today.
The High Court of Kurunegala clearly declared that the Honourable Johnston Fernando has not committed any offence at all. He is somebody who has been imprisoned for a total of 74 days. Who is going to take responsibility for this? Apart from the mental anguish, the deprivation of physical freedom, I also want to emphasize that the High Court of Kurunegala made this order without calling upon the defence at all. The High Court judge came to the conclusion that there was no case for the Honourable Johnston Fernando to answer. There were several things that were established in court. That is that a witness was asked to give false evidence by the CI. Documents were falsified. The course of justice was interfered with in that manner. These are all offences under the penal code. So we will be taking appropriate measures in this regard, and this vindicates what we have said all along, that the FCID is just a political instrument. It has nothing to do with the administration of justice. Its sole purpose is to imprison members of parliament and leading opposition figures whose presence the government finds embarrassing.
Our lawyers are studying the whole thing. When anyone at all, it could be the FCID, it could be the committee what was at Temple Trees. Our lawyers are studying it. We will come out to the...
I was in a prison cell. The very first day they tried to transfer me to the hospital, saying that they cannot provide me security. But I told them to keep me with other prisoners. President offered me a ministerial post. I informed the former president and he asked me to go and meet him. I went with Indika Bandaranayaka. Indika stayed there and I denied the offer. That's why I was put in jail. I suffered a lot in jail. Not only me. Sathasa chairman and one of my coordinating secretaries were also there. Their clothes were removed in front of other prisoners and checked. That was a team from the government. They came from Colombo and asked where Johnston sleeps. I had just returned from Parliament. I was stopped at the doorstep. I was fully checked, including my coat and the pair of trousers. It should have been done in a proper way instead of doing it in front of others. It was my district. I am an MP. General Secretary of the UPFA, Mahinda Rovira, says no discussion had taken place pertaining to changes to the existing government. However, during a media briefing of the group of 15 SLFP members, it was stressed that the SLFP must withdraw from being party to the unity government. I know the SLFP ministers and the President are fed up with this government. We are not in a hurry, but we all need to safeguard the party members and the country. Therefore, we should drive the SLFP to form a government sans UNP, but with other leftist forces. We brought a proposal to the SLFP to withdraw from this government. I think it is in the agenda for the SLFP's next Central Committee meeting. There is no issue about a unity government. That is what you talked about. We didn't speak about a unity government. At least the term was not clearly explained. I think that everyone should be in the government. The biggest issue of the country is that one group is out of it. I received such a proposal from the group of 15, but only 9 MPs have signed it. I also received a copy of the letter. They have asked us to withdraw from the national government. We have noted it. The police special task force today raided the residence of the SLFP organiser for Mavanella and former Sabaraguma provincial councillor Imtiaz Kader Mohammed. It came following a tip-off on a location where firearms used by the underworld are cached. During the raid, STF personnel recovered 3 unregistered firearms, including a Dubai-imported Heckler & Koch MP5K automatic rifle, commonly used for VIP security purposes, a T56 assault rifle, a repeater firearm, and a stash of live ammunition from the house. The STF also found 2 sharp weapons, 2 laptops, a number of mobile phones, and several bottles of foreign liquor. The SLFP organiser for Mavanella was arrested and was escorted to the Organised Crime Prevention Division. During preliminary questioning, the suspect revealed that the automatic rifle used for VIP security was concealed in a television imported from Dubai. The police have launched a comprehensive investigation to ascertain the motive behind the possession of these unlicensed firearms. The police spokesperson said the suspect will be produced before the Kegel Magistrates Court tomorrow. There's more news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources Development intends to arrest a kerosene and diesel racket where concessions given to the fishing community are abused. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo yesterday, Subject Minister Arjuna Ranatunga said that he held discussions with the Ministry of Fisheries with the view to set up fueling stations at fisheries harbours to police the exclusive provision of concession to the fishing community. He added that a part of the racket involves smuggling kerosene and diesel purchased at concessionary rates into India.
When we reduce the kerosene prices, buses and the lorries are using kerosene. It's illegal. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. I have spoken to the fisheries minister and we are looking at installing some diesel and kerosene stations in some of these harbours. We can give them for that concessional price, but outside we might be able to increase the price. It's very risky as well. Those strikes are not done by the fisheries guys. It has been done by these buses and lorry owners. They have to buy the kerosene for the same price, like 110 rupees, but we give them that 40 rupees less, give it to them on their accounts. I don't know why they disagree on that. Apparently, they are taking from the north to South India. We are monitoring that. These are the undercurrent business happening. Some of these areas where they don't have even fisheries business, they use more kerosene than fisheries area.
Now to bring you a market update, the all-share price index edged up 0.03% to 5,778.37 points, hovering near its lowest close since 3rd of December in 2013 hit on Monday. It fell 3.6% last month and is down 9.3% so far this year. The market turnover was 151.8 million rupees today, 1/5 of this year's daily average of 770.8 million rupees. Foreign investors were net sellers of 46.5 million rupees worth of shares, extending the year-to-date net foreign outflow to 9 billion rupees worth of equities. Now we have Dimantha Matthew from First Capital Holdings for a detailed picture.
The market saw a slight recovery today with the price appreciation witnessed in the blue chip counters such as John Keys and Sampak Bank. We saw the rupee stabilizing due to the foreign funding facility that was attained by the central bank yesterday. A net foreign outflow was witnessed for the 6th consecutive day with high foreign participation.
Now moving on to news from overseas. The US has asked Turkey for a recording which is said to provide strong evidence that Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was in fact killed at Istanbul's Saudi consulate. Saudi Arabia denied his killing. Now Khashoggi has not been seen since entering the building on the 2nd of October. In the meantime, the Washington Post today published the last column Khashoggi wrote before he disappeared.
I'm not giving cover at all, but if you look at Saudi Arabia, they're an ally and they're a tremendous purchaser of not only military equipment, but other things. When I went there, they committed to purchase $450 billion worth of things and $110 billion worth of military. Those are the biggest orders in the history of this country. probably the history of the world. I don't think there's ever been any order for $450 billion. And you remember that day in Saudi Arabia where that commitment was made.
Have you said it?
I'm not going to tell you.
Mr. President,
why would I tell you?
Have you asked for this audio, video intelligence that the Turks?
We have asked for it. If it exists, we have asked for it. Yeah. I'm not sure yet that it exists. Probably does, possibly does.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo meanwhile exchanged views on the disappearance of Khashoggi yesterday with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu in Ankara, where he had expressed the United States' willingness to assist Turkey in the case. The Turkish Foreign Minister said Turkey have gained relevant information on the 15 Saudi individuals involved in the case, adding that only after all the investigation and search operations are finished will Turkey release the fully detailed findings. In the meantime, the Washington Post has published the last column Khashoggi wrote before his disappearance. In the column, he talks about the importance of a free press in the Middle East. The newspaper's global opinions editor said its release had been delayed in the hope that Khashoggi would return safely.
A high court in the Maldives today overturned a prison sentence for the country's former president Maumoon Abdul Gayoom. The court set aside the jail term of 1 year, 7 months and 6 days. Maumoon's half-brother Yamin lost last month's presidential election to joint opposition candidate Ibrahim Mohamed Solih, soon after which former President Maumoon was released on bail. Dunya Maumoon, daughter of former President Maumoon, spoke to us over telephone on the latest decision.
I really wanted to express my happiness at today's verdict from the High Court. We had serious concerns about our justice system and our court. The fact that they have been politically influenced for quite a number of years, and we recognize the need for them to be reformed. That this whole situation was politically influenced by President Yamin, so beliefs, and the fact that they were speaking up against some of the wrong things that were being undertaken by President Yamin. As a daughter and as part of the family, I have to say that we are very relieved, very happy.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Now, head of ICC's anti-corruption unit, Alex Marshall, says that most number of investigations pertaining to corruption in cricket during the past 12 months were carried out regarding Sri Lanka. Speaking to the website Cricinfo, Marshall said it is likely to reveal in the near future more Sri Lankan names connected to corruption allegations.
This week, former Sri Lanka captain Sanath Jayasuriya became the first high-profile Sri Lankan player to be charged by the ICC's anti-corruption unit for 2 breaches of its anti-corruption code. The former all-rounder is accused of failing to cooperate with an investigation by the cricket governing body and is also charged with obstructing investigation by concealing, tampering with or destroying evidence, which the cricketer denies. During an interview with Cricinfo, the head of anti-corruption unit of the cricket governing body ICC, Alex Marshall, said that the number of reports and the number of investigations with regards to corruption in Sri Lanka indicates that corruption is still prevailing in the system. He emphasized that ACU will not name a person until he is charged and will not reveal any details regarding wrongdoing until the person is convicted by a tribunal. He further said that Sri Lanka has been visited the most by the anti-corruption unit of the ICC among countries which are charged of corruption allegations in the last 12 months. A very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Forecast First. Starting off with your temperatures for tomorrow that vary between 19 and 30 degrees Celsius with the highest of 30 expected in Mullaitivu. Well, when looking at the map, a low pressure zone will develop in the central hills and will gradually spread throughout the island. Moving on to your rain forecast for tomorrow, most parts of the upper region of the island will experience heavy showers with thunder activity also expected. Well, it's no difference in the lower region of the island as most parts will experience thunder showers. That's all from the Weather Center tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast. And that's it from First Tonight. And before we go, we're going to take you to Hatton.
Serving as a gateway to Adams Peak, Hatton is one of the busiest cities in the hill country of Sri Lanka and is colloquially known as the tea capital of the country, as it is the central point for most upcountry tea growing regions such as Maskelia, Talawakele, Bogawantalawa and the Dikkoya. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.